This is the Krillcast. I'm Chris. I keep clapping because it throws Will off every time.
I don't know why you clap. I'm expecting that like that's gonna be your cut mark, but you always leave it in, so it doesn't make any sense to me.
This is the behind the scenes gold, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Dream Factory.
So, Will, what's today?
Today is a Wild Card Wednesday.
And who the heck's below you?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the Shenmue guy. That's why I have that picture of it. That's what I'm known for. Google Shenmue guy. I bet I'll come up.
Shenmue guy, but Dreamcast guy is not him, even though he's been mistaken for him.
I have been mistaken for Dreamcast guy, just on the basis of I like Dreamcast.
Get that other Dreamcast guy.
Yeah,
that was a
good story. We already told that story.
Yes.
But that's a good story.
I'm gonna link that video in the description somewhere because that's a great story. All right, it's not a great story for Adam necessarily, but it is a great story.
It was worth the story. Like, I didn't miss out anything. I didn't know about it until after, so it was just a good story. That's true.
That's true. All right, so today for Wildcard Wednesday, we're going to be talking about remasters, remakes, and reboots. And before we define anything, I'm going to ask Adam this question. Is Shenmue 3 a reboot to the series?
No.
No. Okay. So you would consider it a full-blown sequel or continuation of the story?
Yeah, it's indisputably a direct sequel.
I meant like from the regards of gameplay, modernizing the gameplay, kind of changing a lot of things about
it's a revitalization.
Revitalization.
Yeah,
that's a better way to describe it.
Yeah, it's essentially just a spiritual continuation. Like, it is unapologetically more Shenmue. Like, did you like the first two? Good. This is more of it with a different graphic engine.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. The gameplay mechanics change in the fighting engine, but there's like a legalese reason for that because they used the Virtua Fighter engine originally, and they didn't have access to it this time.
So I guess the next question is, would you consider the Shenmue 1 and 2 HD a remake or a remaster? Not a remake. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. So it would be a.
It is not. It is neither. It is a re-release with enhancements.
It's not a remaster.
No, it's not a remaster. In fact, when I was working with Sega on that, they were very clear that they were not calling it a remaster.
Oh.
Because remaster has very specific requirements to meet that definition, and the Shenmue re-release did not. So they, particularly because of the audio, because the original audio, I guess, was lost. And so they had to like essentially rip it from the Dreamcast in a more compressed way, something to that effect.
Oh yeah, you did say that before.
So as a result, it does not satisfy that definition. But what they could do was enhance the visual quality, but only to an extent. People just do not understand, and I don't blame you for this because it's why would you care? But like the original game, the first one, was such a garbled coding mess in the state it was left in after they released it originally. That like the majority of what D3T, the development team behind the re-release, had to do was just figuring out what the hell was even there and seeing if it was possible to get it to run. So it is not considered a remaster. I would call it an enhanced re-release.
Okay.
And I'm sorry because I realize that kind of breaks the core of the whole point of this subject. So
that's good.
That's just another category because I mean, there's a lot of times when there's a game that gets released at the end of a console generation, and then it simply gets enhanced for the next one.
Sure.
So the point of this is, like, I kind of have like a general discussion about remasters, remakes, and reboots in the gaming industry and how we feel about it. So I'll give you guys the definitions real quick. This is kind of like, I just wanted to hit Adam with that question because I was like, I wonder what he'll say if I ask these questions ahead of time. So the definition of a video game remaster is that it's a remaster that refers to changing the quality of the sound of the image or both, which that is why I asked about 1 and 2 HD, of previously created recordings, either audiophonic, cinematic, or videographic. Remastering a video game is more difficult than remastering a film or music recording because the video game's graphics show their age, which is very apparent in games with no graphical overhauls. And this can be due to a number of factors, notably lower resolutions, and that's usually with the details, and less complicated rendering engines at the time of the release.
Pod Racer looks like crap. Still fun.
I think it looks fine, honestly. Like
it looks like crap. Honestly, it looks better than most of the N64 games, but...
Well, did they go off the N64 version or go off the Dreamcast version?
There's also a PC release add-on that came out at the same time.
So did it go off of that?
Probably the PC release.
That would make the most sense.
Because I think the PC release actually supported widescreen at some point. I don't think it did out of the gate, but they enhanced it through Steam.
With those intro graphics, it has to be PC because there's nothing like that.
Yeah, they added the intro videos to every racetrack onto the PC version. Those are all and it's funny because they didn't change anything about them. They just left the cutscenes the way they are, which is why they're pixelated as all get out.
I kind of remember them being in the Dreamcast version.
Yes, the Dreamcast version and the PC version pretty much match.
Yeah, that would make sense because it was, they were. That was a weird time when consoles were still somewhat competitive with PC hardware. What a weird time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the big deal there was they actually made the PC and Dreamcast version together. And that was one of the few games that was the Windows CE compatible version that came out on the Dreamcast because Microsoft kind of sponsored that.
Sure.
I know you've talked about this before, but there are very few games that actually took advantage of the Dreamcast Windows CE collaboration because it was actually more difficult to program for.
Which was supposed to be easier. That's the irony.
Podracer N64. But yeah, so that actually took advantage of it, which is one of the few, and that's why it was easily ported to the PC and the Dreamcast when they did the PC port initially. So that's a good definition, a good remaster example. But another good remaster example would be like the Master Chief Collection games that got the not any like true visual upgrades, but like Halo 3 on the PC, Halo 4 on the PC. They have now support the full open, the wide views and all that stuff. And then like Halo Anniversary is basically a remake.
I don't know. I would still really. You think that would be a remake? I mean,
maybe not. Maybe not. It's just a visual overhaul. I guess it's more of a remaster.
It's just, how you define something colloquially versus the actual definition. Because I would have still considered that a remaster. Because it's the same game, but they updated like the graphics and sounds.
That's a good point. Okay, fair enough. That's also a remaster. So, I guess what would be a good example of a remake? What would you guys think of when you think of a remake? Yeah,
like in the Yakuza Kiwami.
That's a good point. Yakuza Kiwami. Actually, I need to pick up some of these Yakuza games. Yakuza Kiwami. Yeah, because I was gonna say, even like the Dead Rising games that got ported, they weren't really even remasters. Those were just like,
they're just the games running on max settings.
Capcom was like, here you go, and burned it to a new disc.
Yeah, I mean, with examples like say BioShock 1. Like I actually went to a 2K event and they were like, yeah, we're re-releasing the BioShock games, and here's what we did with the 3 of them. We took BioShock Infinite and we just ran it on max settings. That's all we did. And with BioShock 2, they're like, we threw in all the DLC, we increased the max settings, then we did a little bit of extra trickery. And BioShock 1 is the one where we did like the most like, okay, we're gonna really dig in and we're gonna clean up a lot of the textures here and there and blah blah blah. So it's like that set is almost a perfect microcosm of everything other than a complete remake.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another remake I just thought of. One, Persona on the PSP. They put Persona 1, Persona 2, and both Persona 2s on the PSP. Those are actual remakes of PS1 games on PSP.
And the Fire Emblem ones too, right? There's a lot of...
Yeah, that's true. They have a couple of remakes in the Fire Emblem scene. Like Fire Emblem Shadows of Valencia. It's a Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia. And then there's a couple... Now, the one they just released, which we didn't need, is the original Fire Emblem from the Famicom, and that's just a straight-up port with some Switch enhancements. It's not a remaster like some people would want to believe, but it's definitely not one of those.
Here's another, like a remake, the Oddworld Soulstorm. So that's technically a remake of, I think, Abe's Odyssey or Exodus. I don't know which one's which. But it's essentially like a reimagining of the same game.
Oh, Demon Souls too. I think that's a complete remake, isn't it? I think.
Yes, I think so.
I don't know.
Okay, then I'll just go to Shadow of the Colossus because that is definitely a remake from the ground up on the PS4. So the definition of a remake is...
There's also so many weird hybrids now, like they're in between. So sorry to cut you off, but like I'm just thinking how hard it is to actually use these terms.
Yeah, and that's why I want to kind of define them. So the definition of a video game remake is a video game closely adapted from an earlier title, usually for the purpose of modernizing a game for newer hardware and contemporary audiences. Typically, a remake of such game software shares essentially the same title, fundamental gameplay concepts, and core story elements of the original game. But remakes are often made by the original developer or copyright holder, sometimes by the fan community, like Black Mesa for Half-Life. If created by the community, video game remakes are sometimes also called a fan game and can be seen as part of the retro gaming phenomenon, which I don't know if I agree with that. But Black Mesa, in my opinion, is probably the most prolific remake of a game by fans. and it was using the Half-Life 2 engine, so it was truly a remake in a different engine, and it maintained a lot of the older gameplay options from the original Half-Life game, but modernized it enough that it was more accessible to new players of the Half-Life games.
What about Halo SPV3? Would that be considered a remake?
No, because it's not.
It's the same game, but they added a bunch of stuff to it.
I don't know.
And, like levels and things.
I don't know enough about Halo SPV, I guess.
It's freaking awesome.
It's more of an enhanced game, right? Like they didn't remaster
I'm not familiar with that game, but based on your description, it just sounds like a Game of the Year edition or something. Like where it just has all the DLC and patches.
You know, it's like a fan made. They went through and added in like all the weapons from across all of the games. They put in like actual like created new levels for it. Changed the narrative slightly for that.
Okay.
It sounds like it's more of like a fan enhanced game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
I mean, it has remastered. It has good and more enhanced visuals. Like, whoa, Cortana looks really different. Did they use like a different Cortana in this game, or did they just make her look different?
They went through and changed the code. It's fascinating how much work they've done.
I would give it a fan remaster, enhanced remaster, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't usually see fans doing quote unquote remasters though. It's kind of a different territory. It's kind of different.
Yeah, the thing is, there's more than just these three definitions as we've come up with. That's the problem is you start getting into the minutia, and they're like, well, that one actually is.
So truly, the game industry uses these three terms: remaster, remake, reboot, right? But there are a whole bunch of different things you can do in between those things that are different than what we're talking about. But generally speaking, you get like HD remake, HD remaster, and then occasionally when a game series has failed, you get like Doom 2016, a reboot of the series.
And it's a reboot.
So
well, that's like a reboot of it's a continuation, but a reboot at the same time, which
kind of like what Halo Infinite.
Soft reboot.
Yes.
What you're describing is a soft reboot, which I think is like what God of War was.
Yeah.
Where it kind of restarts the franchise, but hey, there's a couple of ties to previous ones, so they're still canon, but don't worry about them, type of thing. Whereas like a full reboot, if we want to go with another bad one, would be like Sonic 06, where it's like this is the brand new face of the franchise. This is the direction we're going. Everything before this is bullshit. It's not real. This is it, and then it falls on its face. Now, there's definitely going to be some good examples of that throughout history, but
Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Would you consider that a full reboot?
I mean, basically,
it's in the name.
It's a reboot in the aspect that Rare left Nintendo. They stopped making Donkey Kong Country games, except for the couple of Game Boy Advance releases and Diddy Kong Racing on the DS. But other than that, full cutoff of the Donkey Kong Country series. They made Donkey Kong 64 was the final title in like 1990 something. So like almost 15, 20 years later, Donkey Kong Country Returns burst on the scene like 2011. So like 15 years. And that was basically a reboot.
But my question is then, is it a sequel? Is it within some sort of continuity, or is it just like none of that ever happened?
I don't think they were allowed to because of the tie-ins with Rare, because like they didn't even use the original enemies in Donkey Kong Country Returns. Like they had to make up their own enemies. They couldn't use the ones from Rare.
But that doesn't mean from a lore perspective it's not continued. That's unfortunately, as dumb and technical as we're being, that actually is what defines it or not.
There's zero reference. There's zero reference to the original trilogy and the new trilogy other than the music.
Okay, that might be. I honestly don't know. It's more like I'm just getting super technical on this because that's kind of the point, is that we aren't limited to just these three.
I do believe this is a true reboot, Donkey Kong Country Returns, because like I said, there are no recycled enemies, and like basically Retro is starting from scratch when they built these, other than they got the original music. I think David Wise is the famous composer, is the right name for Donkey Kong Country, and usually I know that right off the top of my head, but I haven't thought about Donkey Kong Country in a little while until we brought this up. So the definition of a reboot, and this is just like the overall in media in general. In serial fiction or games, the term reboot signifies a new start to an established fictional universe, work, or series. A reboot, this is a hard reboot, discards continuity to recreate its characters, plot lines, and backstory from the beginning. It has been described as a way to rebrand or restart an entertainment universe that has already been established, kind of like what they do with Spider-Man every time they get done with a trilogy with Sony. Another definition of a reboot is a remake, which is part of an established film series or other media franchise, including video games. The term has been criticized for being a vague and confusing buzzword and concept which has been losing popularity since 2010.
Yeah, that's why they're considering Halo a spiritual reboot instead of just a full reboot.
Because it's a soft reboot because it's a continuation of the story.
Yeah, but I think it's a safer bet than just saying, screw it, I'm going to start over.
Well, no, you can't do that with Halo. It'd be like saying we're going to start over with Star Wars. No, the farthest back you can go is before the sequels trilogy started, and most people would be okay with that.
Yes, I would, yes.
So I guess what I want to kind of talk about is like, are we sick of seeing remasters, remakes, and reboots in the video games industry, or are we mostly okay with them?
I go back and forth on this. Like, there's obviously games I'm excited for to get remastered. There's some I'm excited to see a reboot. Like, I'm excited to see a reboot of Fable. I thought that storyline ran its course, so I want them to start over with it. And then like a spiritual reboot for Halo, I'm excited for that because I felt the same way. But there's others that's like, why are you doing this? And there's like remakes that like I'd rather just have the port of the original game. I don't need a remake or a remaster. So I don't know. It depends on the game. I do think that this is potentially easier money for a lot of companies than just designing new IPs. So it's just like the movies. There's like every movie's either a sequel or it's a reboot.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm inclined to pretty much entirely agree with Will on that. But I mean, because the only thing I can add to it is we're victims of our own, desires here, because essentially you vote with your wallet. So if you put out, another game that's a sequel, it's like it already has a pre-installed fan base. Like people are more likely to say buy another Mario sequel than they are to say, buy some brand new IP from Nintendo. Like, sure, you might be successful with that brand new IP, but you already know a certain level of success pre-built in to just the brand. I mean, like, okay, pulling from an obscure reference in history here, if you remember the Philips CDI, and obviously you all do,
I do.
The console has no real value outside of 4 games: Hotel Mario and the unholy Triforce of Zelda games. That's the only ones people care about, and it's not because those games are good. It's just because they have that existing brand associated with them. And
my boy.
Yeah, there you go. And so that kind of tells you a lot. Like if you have a valuable brand, same with movies, same with TV, same with video games, it's just easier. It's the easier thing to, and I agree, it kind of, withdraws from creativity a bit, but when they try to get creative, a lot of the time people don't show up. And then they're like, see, this is why we keep, going from the well.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of that though, this actually fits right in with the subject. Somebody remade the Zelda Cdi Trilogy, or two of the 3 of them.
I know. They essentially remade the video aspects of it.
Yeah. Then they made it accessible on computer, I think.
Yeah, it's PC. Yeah, it's for PC.
Yeah, so they remade it so you can play it on the PC. Like that is epic. That is a fan remat. I don't know what you call it, remake, remaster. I don't know how much they went into the code. And
fan make. Let's call it fan make.
A fan make. And we've covered fan made games before, but this like intrigued me because I've actually played the original CDI games. I'm probably one of the. Have you played it, Adam?
Oh yeah. I was about to say. The funny thing is they're actually not that bad. They're not that good, but they're not that bad.
To call them not that bad, like the control. No. If you have the controller, it's not that bad.
Yeah. I have the SNES style controller.
Okay, so you're in a better place than I was.
Yeah, so you have to factor that in. It's not good, but you are also grading on the CDI curve.
Okay.
So they're not awful. The thing is, most people's impression of them is just the same animation that they've seen on YouTube, so they just assume the whole game's like that. It's like, no, that's just crappy animation from 1993. You know what I mean? Like, it's just how it is. But I'm not sitting here and saying oh, you're saying that they're masterpieces, I should play them. No, but they're just not as awful as you probably think. And now you can check for yourself.
So I'm pretty torn on my personal take on this, because I see the Mass Effect Legendary Edition and I so want to play this in the original, the concept that it was supposed to be, how beautiful it should have been in modern consoles. I'm so on board with this, and I shouldn't be, because EA takes my money every time they put out a Mass Effect game, and they shouldn't, because they screwed up with Andromeda
put down
hard.
The Switch and buy it.
They're not currently planning it. That's the part that drives me crazy.
I already have the other one, so again, I'm fine.
They need to pay whoever did the Witcher 3 port to also do this port to the Switch, because the Witcher 3 plays really well on the Switch, far better than I ever expected it to.
You know, I kind of wonder, you know, we are, even though these obviously prove to be somewhat successful, we do sit here, and I remember thinking this with, you know, a lot of Xbox One games and PS4 games, is a lot of them were just 7th gen ports that were like enhanced. And we were kind of getting to a point where you're like, should I even buy games this generation, or should I just wait and play them next time when they've done the enhanced version? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're kind of introducing everybody to the idea that, dude, don't buy the game now. Wait, you know, 5 years when they have all the DLC and all the patches on one disc, and it's like remastered and everything's corrected. Like, why not just do that? Like, honestly, it might be like the best idea ever to get an Xbox Series X and be like, okay, I can't wait for all the Xbox One ports that are finally going to be finished. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that there is something to that.
That's fair. That's a good point. You know, and it's funny. I do wait to buy games. Like, for example, I just bought all of the Dead Rising games for the second time on the Xbox One. Like, what was I thinking?
And again, they pretty much, I mean, the first two at least were 360 games, but I bet you dollars to donuts that the Xbox One versions are better.
Slightly. Not as much as I was hoping, honestly.
Well, I mean, they aren't full-on remasters. Essentially, like they told me with 2K, they're probably just taking the games and running them on max settings. And that's it. That's probably all they're doing. And that makes it nicer, but it's not going to blow your mind.
No, that's true. The one thing that I will point out, though, is there's 2 Dead Rising games tied to the Xbox 360 only, and you cannot get them on the PlayStation, and you can't get them on current gen hardware, and that is the prequel and epilogue to Dead Rising 2. And the only way to buy them,
Patient Zero or whatever,
is it's Case Zero and Case West.
Okay.
Neither of those games are available to purchase on the Xbox One, but you can play them on your Xbox One if you go back to an Xbox 360, load up the Xbox store, buy the games, and you can carry them forward from now on. That's my tip of the day. If you love Dead Rising, get it now before they shut down the Xbox 360 store in the future.
You know what's funny is I believe I have both of them because at some point they were both made the Xbox games with Gold Game.
They might have been. Well, because they were cheap enough.
That's the only way I would have them because I don't buy digital. So like they're there. So that must be how I got them.
Yeah.
But so hopefully a lot of you brought them forward.
I had to go back and buy Case West because it wasn't attached to my current account, and I have no idea where I played it before.
Yeah.
So I had to go buy it.
I will say that Xbox will randomly just give me free games. They just show up and I own them. It's not like from Xbox Gold or anything. I just have them now. It's like I have Assassin's Creed randomly. I never bought that. It's in there, and I have a couple other games. I got the Star Wars Battlefront game, the new one. I don't know where it came from.
They're just sending you review copies, Will, and you don't know it.
I don't know. It's definitely not review copies. It's been out for years.
They want you to review it as the angry video game Will. I don't know.
I have no idea where it's coming from. I'm not complaining, but I'm just confused.
Maybe ask your wife. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
All right, so
check your bank account on that.
Yeah, I have. Like,
They're not as free as you think.
I thought, like, it was glitching or something, and I was buying these, or someone else buying them on my account or something. But no, they just show up.
That's really bizarre. Well, I would just keep that one under wraps.
5 or 6 of them now.
I would just not tell anybody that's happening. Just like keep it to yourself. No,
Yeah.
You know what game is begging for a remake, remaster, or reboot is not reboot, definitely not reboot, but a remake. The original Witcher game.
Yes.
Because it's only on PC and that's it.
I want all 3 on the Switch. I'm so disappointed that they're not all just ported to the Switch.
I heard that the Witcher 3 port process was insane.
I would have to think so, yeah.
Yeah. The Witcher 1 and 2 are not nearly as big a games. They're not open world.
No, they're not. That's true. They're much, like a lot of people have said, if you go back and try and play 1 and 2, it's almost better if you just watch a playthrough than actually play them.
Witcher 2 was fun. I haven't played the first one yet.
Witcher 2 is on Xbox 360.
Yes, it is.
So that is one that you can actually play right now. So, and the next thing is, doesn't backwards compatibility kind of kill the remaster market for the Xbox Series X?
Yeah, I was curious about that too, because like, how does that? What's the long-term strategy there? Because I mean, Sony matched it with PS5, playing PS4 stuff. So you got to wonder if they're just gonna either drop this concept, which I can't imagine they'll really do, or they'll just find some other way to be like, this is no, this is not just backwards compatible. This is like the Super HD Ultra 4K Holy Shit edition. That like you're like, wow, I didn't know that the character could look like that. I mean, I don't know how else you pitch it anymore. Like, unless you just do what they've kind of done, which is you essentially give you a Game of the Year edition on max settings and just hope people buy it.
Well, it's free money if you do that, right? Like you're not costing you any money to do that. But the other half of it is it could force developers to actually continue these old games they've left in the dust. Like, for example, Dragon Age is getting a new game now.
They were always going to. I mean, Inquisition sold like hotcakes.
Did it really? Because I heard it was a horrible game.
It was sold very well. I don't know the reviews on it.
I guess Mass Effect Andromeda, just based on the Mass Effect name, sold pretty well.
Yeah, also. Well, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, honestly, that's a fine game. It's just not as good as the other ones.
Right. It didn't meet the expectations of the Mass Effect fans. And hopefully they've learned their lesson and they're going to go back to their roots with Mass Effect 4 or 5, whatever they end up calling it.
Anthem sold really well.
It did. I think it outperformed the people like us on YouTube's expectations because we knew what it was, but the people who went and bought it didn't know what it was. And so it sold really well based on it being Anthem, BioWare, EA. I said Activision.
That is a great way to kill a franchise, though. It's just, all right, the name is valuable, so let's just crap anything out there with the name on it.
Pokemon, let's go.
Until we burn this into the ground and nobody ever wants the franchise back. I mean, don't forget, no franchise is indestructible. Like, look at Star Wars. If it weren't for the Mandalorian, we'd all be like, well, that was nice while it lasted. You know what I mean?
I'm already like that. Until they make it official that they've gotten rid of the sequel trilogy, I still don't care.
And I that's a different discussion that we've already kind of hinted at, but I still maintain that's going to happen. They're going to, as soon as Kathleen Kennedy's out the door, it's like, oh, what do you know? There's this thing we can do within canon that will somehow eliminate all of it. And there is actually a basis behind that, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, I actually know what you're talking about, and I would love to have.
I want that discussion. Yes.
I want to have.
We get sidetracked.
I want to have this guy on to talk about it with us.
Doomcock. Yeah,
we definitely need to have him on when we talk about it.
You wouldn't need me. Like, just have him. He'll go on.
No, Adam, you got to be there because you're just gonna use your Emperor voice the whole time. All right.
Yes, delete me.
All right. So let's just say this: if we were to beg right now for a reboot, remaster, or remake, what game would you pick for each of those particular categories? What's a game for a remaster that you would not want them to do anything other than upgrade the visuals?
Halo 3.
I don't know, man. That's kind of an on-the-spot one. Remaster, maybe. I would kind of like to see them go back at the Xbox original version of Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Ooh, yes.
Ooh, yeah.
I'd like to see a remaster of that running in like. Well, okay. To be fair, maybe that's not a good answer because that does run like 4K on an Xbox Series X now. But that's just emulation. It would be nice to see if they actually went back in and like actually upgraded the textures rather than just relying on an emulator.
I was hoping they were that's what the initiative was working on instead of Perfect Dark. I was kind of hoping.
Oh, that's a cool looking game though. I will say that looks great.
It's just a video. I don't know. I've never been in that series, so it's going to be a hard sell for me.
I want Nintendo to actually redo Super Mario 64 correctly without the black bars on the side. I want it to be widescreen. I want them to upgrade the visuals and give me Mario 64 like they did in Unreal Engine.
I was actually going to use that for a video game remake, and it sounds like that's what you're saying.
No, I just want visuals upgraded. I don't really care too much about a remake for this. I don't need Mario Odyssey, Mario 64. I just want the visuals better because the game itself, I love the way it controls.
Okay. But that's still my answer.
I would like a remake of Fable 2.
Hold on, we're not there yet. All right, remakes. What do you guys want for remakes?
I meant not remake. I meant remaster. Sorry.
What do you guys want for remakes?
I told you, Super Mario 64. Like, I'd love to see it basically the way we're seeing it there on YouTube.
Okay, yeah. This is beautiful. But I'm sure Nintendo would just blow it over the top.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Maybe.
They had their chance, and they very much didn't.
They blew it under the top. They did a good job. I mean, this looks really good, actually. You know what? If they did it like this, yes, I will take a Mario 64 remake. But the game that's been begging, that's tugging at my heartstrings for years to get a true remake with the visual fidelity it deserves, Star Wars Pod Racer. I want movie-like graphics in the game. That's what I want.
That would be pretty good. I would be on board for that.
And custom pod racers, like give me the Need for Speed option where I got the garage and I can literally do my own paint job. Could like put my own rockets on there.
Well,
Give
let me
like
throw this at
pimp
you.
my pod
EA
racer.
has the rights to both right now, so you never know. Maybe EA is like, hey, we'll put like custom cars in there too, just to screw it up.
Yep.
Give us the Cyberpunk car and the pod racer for some reason.
That would be one of those things where, like, okay, so I'm no racing game fan other than, actually, it's funny, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, easily my favorite racing game like ever made.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I do have friends who are into racing games. A lot of them say like Need for Speed hasn't been good in like a long time.
Most Wanted was the best one.
Yeah, and
The
that was
original
a while-
Most Wanted.
That was like GameCube. You know, like that was a while ago.
It was on the 360. That's the version I like.
Oh, okay, then I'm thinking of a different.
No. It was on the GameCube, the Xbox, the PS2, and it was a launch title for the 360.
Okay, so my point though, what I'm trying to say is, would it be interesting, like you had made Star Wars Episode 1, like, you know, Racer all over again with this like bonus feature of having, just as a gag, having all these like real world cars in it. And then everybody's like, well, actually it's really good at that. Why don't we just essentially have that as our next, you know, Need for Speed game? It's just racing cars. It's just we happen to be driving through Tatooine. You know what I'm saying?
That would be kind of cool, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, you're welcome.
Okay, you know what? As a bonus option, I will allow it. If you buy the Need for Speed and pod racing game, you can move the cars and racers amongst the games. Like you can play. Can you imagine driving your pod racer down Main Street in Need for Speed, and the cops try to catch you, and you're going
That's
700 miles an
essentially
hour?
how I feel about Master Chief being in Fortnite.
Yeah. Good point. But it'd be
Other than
cool
the
to
fact
see.
I love Pod Racer already, but you know.
Like if EA, I would just beg for that. Like if they could give me like the visuals from Star Wars Episode 1 of the pod racers, and that scene has aged so well, by the way, and I would show it to you, but we'd get copyrighted by Disney again, so I'm not going to. But that would be one of the greatest remakes, in my opinion, ever, and I think it would sell hard because people love that game. And if you ever want to see like cool Unreal Engine upgrades, this guy is literally the best. Cryzen X. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's done like almost all the Unreal Engine upgrades to games. Like for example, Ocarina of Time, his Unreal Engine looks way better than what Nintendo actually did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's got the record for the number of DMCA takedowns from Nintendo.
I believe that. They're insane. You're celebrating our history? How dare you? Bam.
Yep.
Yep, pretty much. So I would take any of the games this guy
as far
makes.
as remakes, that'd be cool. The you know, first two 3D Zelda games.
They're gonna do what they do with Mario. They're gonna give us the 3D Zelda collection, and it's gonna look like the Mario 64 game.
If they don't do at least the HD ones for the more modern ones, I'm gonna be so pissed.
They're not going to, because they'd have to
I'm
figure
not
out what to do
buying
with the
it. Like,
touchpad.
as much as I want those games so much on the Switch, I'm not gonna buy it.
Yeah,
but
you won't, but everybody else will.
I know. It's the same thing with Super Mario. It's like I wanted the at least the DS version of Super Mario 64.
I'm ready to be a sellout and sell my Super Mario 3D collection. I'm so disappointed with what they did. Like I really like even Mario Sunshine, like as good as it is, it's like I have a GameCube. I can play this game. So I don't know.
Remember, there were people buying stacks of those things, which is pointless because you can walk into any Best Buy and get it.
Yeah, like they have tons of them.
Telling you, that's the built-in market value. All Nintendo did was have to be like, yeah, it's Mario, it's some games, whatever.
And they said there's an end date. That was why so many people bought it, because
there's like a digital end date.
And
Here's the thing about physical. It's like they're like, oh no, they're gonna stop making copies at that point. Yeah, they always do that. I mean, how many games do you know that they constantly make new print runs of it like every couple months? It doesn't happen. They stopped printing games. All they did was tell you when they were gonna do it.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They'll never stop making that game. That game will get printed until the Switch dies.
Mhm.
Oh, good for them.
They've sold like 30-something million copies of that game. I think it's the highest selling single system game ever.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was like the only one that sold like a couple million copies on Wii U.
Yeah, it was like actually that sold like almost 9 million copies on the Wii U. It was like almost every Wii U owner had Mario Kart 8.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So, what about a reboot? Is there a game franchise that you guys love or know that deserves a reboot? And don't say Perfect Dark because it's already happening.
Yeah, well, they're already doing Fable, so that would have been my first answer for sure.
My answer will be a little obscure. I want that'll never happen, but I want Sega to do a complete reboot of Rystar. Do you guys remember Rystar?
I don't remember this one.
Okay, I don't blame you. Nobody does. Rystar was
Did I spell this right?
Ristar.
Oh, okay.
There was actually a time where Sega's whole thing was
Oh yeah, okay.
where mascots were supposed to be very temporary. So Ristar was intended to replace Sonic. And it was actually very good, very good platformer, but it didn't exactly catch fire. And so they just kind of dropped it. So for like a very brief window, Ristar was the Sega mascot in between Sonic and I guess Sonic again. So and he's made a cameo in a couple of Sega related things. I think the last time we saw him, he was in like Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing or something.
Just that game.
Cameo. Yeah, he wasn't even playable. It was just like a cameo. This is really his only game ever. And I think it would be cool to kind of give him another treatment, though. Modern Sega tends to throw their like old IPs at spotlight services where they basically say, okay, unlike Nintendo, who's like, hey, you like our games, that's cool, DMCA, take down, go to hell, we hate you, die. Sega's like, well, we, you know, do you want to work with us? Like that's how you got Streets of Rage 4, that's how you got Sonic Mania, that's how you got the Panzer Dragoon remake. You basically have fans being like, I love your IPs, you're not using them, here's what I can offer you. And then they actually have a program that says like, okay, we'll give you some additional assets, come on in and you make Panzer Dragoon for us. Boom, somebody could get behind Ristar. I just don't think Ristar has enough of a like install base where people really truly will get in there. But that would be mine, because I think it would be cool to just kind of see like what somebody would do with that IP.
This game really, like, hardcore reminds me of this game. Have you ever seen this game? It like really feels like the way this game plays.
I don't even know what game you're looking at right now.
Mickey's Magical Quest.
Oh yeah, I beat it. I made it.
Yeah, I like that game. I liked that game a lot when I was a kid, and I still think it has some pretty good gameplay mechanics. So I have played it every once in a while.
Did you buy it new or did you buy it used like some sort of communist?
Dude, I've had this game forever. I don't even know if I even bought it in the first place.
I appreciate that. You got to pay. That's what it's about.
This is, you know, it's funny. They remade the one on the Genesis, but they didn't remake this one. This one's like stuck on the SNES, and I think there might be a Game Boy Advance port of it. I'm really not sure.
That's SNES. That's because that's a Capcom title.
It is. Yep.
So Sega made all the ones for Genesis, and they had the rights to those outside of the actual character. But the Capcom ones was a fusion of Disney and Capcom, and I guess their relationship has somewhat soured.
Yeah, I think there's a GBA remake of this, and that's it. I don't think they ever remade it on a modern console since the GBA, which is unfortunate. But you know, I have considered getting a GBA copy of this game just to replay it on my Game Boy Player for some reason, because I'm weird.
That's how I would do it.
Yeah, that is the best way to play Game Boy Advance games, on the Game Boy Player on the GameCube, until the actual analog pocket actually comes out and I have a chance to see what it looks like. Yeah. So, my remake, my bag of a reboot is Dead Rising. Like either a reboot or a prequel. I would love to see them do a prequel playing as Carlito from the first game in Santa Cabeza, and how they took down the U.S. government to survive and go to Willamette.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. That's not really a reboot, then. That's just a sequel that you're asking for.
No, it's a prequel.
Well,
but,
okay,
but they could reboot the whole game series.
You're talking about something that exists within canon. A reboot would be like, I want them to completely start fresh and make like a Dead Rising game that's like a remake of the first one that's like done differently. I think that was like the whole point of the subject. Like, I want to play
as play as angry Carlito from Santa Cabeza, who's mad and coming in and setting. This is kind of like its own spin-off game, I guess, really.
Yeah, so Chris doesn't want a reboot. He just wants a continuation, but like in a weird direction.
Yeah, like
that's fine.
Dead Rising 4 was kind of a reboot of Dead Rising, because it like took Frank West and remade him into something he's not, and it was really frustrating. I would love to see them either erase Dead Rising 4 and remake a different Dead Rising 4 that actually makes sense, or barring that, make a Dead Rising 5 that essentially ignores parts of Dead Rising 4. Okay, so a reboot. Let me think about a good reboot.
I have two.
Go ahead. You go first then.
Amped on the original Xbox. I want them to reboot that. I love that game. Or two, Munch's Odyssey. I like for the Oddworld games to remake that or reboot it.
Oh, 3D Rayman. I would love a reboot of 3D Rayman, because Rayman 2: The Great Escape was my favorite N64 game until I don't remember what game surpassed it, but that was my favorite game on the N64 for a long time.
Have you played the Dreamcast version?
I have not.
You should. It's like the enhanced edition.
I did not. Let's put it this way: I did not have a Dreamcast growing up because I didn't have the love for Sega that everybody else had.
You savage.
I mean, I did not have my own dispensable income or liquid income to spend on that at that time. So
Yeah, but you had healthy kidneys you could have sold.
I don't know that many people that were buying healthy kidneys from a 6-year-old, but
They're fresh and young.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I would love to see a Rayman reboot 3D style, because I loved Rayman 2: The Great Escape. Now, just for fun at the end here, this will be the last part of this. What are some remasters, remakes, or reboots that we hate, that we think are just garbage?
Oh man.
Man,
Yeah.
I know there are a bunch.
I know exactly. It's one of those things where like the second we stop recording, I'm like, well, right, and that one. But like at the moment, I don't have any great answer for that. Oh, Sonic 06. There you go.
Yeah.
That's like the perfect example of a bad everything. Bad remake, bad reboot.
What do you mean?
Not a
It's got
remaster.
beautiful visuals.
No. It was fine, I guess, for its time, but that's all I've got. This is the first one that comes to mind for me. The problem is I'm like looking around in my collection being like, where's the bad ones? I'm like, oh, that's right, I probably didn't buy them.
Oh, I can tell you one that I did not like at all. And it's gone. It's gone. It was there for a brief second and it's gone. Oh, you know what? They did actually port Rayman 2 The Great Escape to iOS, but they did the worst possible thing they could do, and they only made it 32-bit, so it never carried forward. So my $20 is gone. So that was fun.
Digital, yo.
Yeah, it was a garbage idea. That's why I won't buy any more mobile games that were converted to unless it's the only way to get it and it's a game I literally just won't live without, then maybe. Oh, Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop on the Wii. I mean, it's not the worst game ever, but they literally had to cut so much
but
content from
Is
this
that
game.
really like a remake, or is that just?
That's
like
just a sequel again.
Yeah.
It's a port. Actually, it's a port
Chris
of the
is
original.
just getting
Dead
hung
Rising.
up, man. You're the one who came up with the definitions.
And then you're
Dang
like
it.
not adhering to them at all.
Yeah, I know.
You're like, you know what'd be a good reboot? Another sequel. Okay.
Oh,
Good
man.
reboot to the Home Alone franchise would be Home Alone 5.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no. That would be a good one, though. Soft reboot. Home Alone, like, Kevin's older. He has to defend the house, but the purge is now a real thing.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
There you go. That's a
That's-
soft reboot.
For the Home Alone Purge Edition.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good.
Christmas is coming. Oh my gosh. All right, you know what? We'll just end it there.
I like it.
Nothing else to say on this one. But definitely stick around because Adam and Will and I always have a fun time. So we got 2 more episodes, Thursday and Friday. As always, I'm Chris.
Will.
I'm Adam. I like reboots, I guess.
And everything
Or
else.
I don't. I don't know. Whatever you prefer. This is my opinion. That's how I feel.
Just remember the sequel trilogy exists and you'll feel better about sleeping tonight. Okay.
Yeah, because then a soft reboot would get rid of it, wouldn't it?
There you go. All right.
Or a hard one. That's fine.
Either way, just get rid of it.
You know what?
That's really
This
the point of this whole thing. Just get rid of this Disney sequel trilogy. That's what all of these podcasts are about. We're
Yeah.
just everything else is garnished. The meat of this is get rid of the Disney trilogy of Star Wars.
everything comes back to how did the Emperor survive and why is he here?
I'm telling you, I fell into a mirror and then I got a new body.
The Veil of the Force. Okay.
A veil of the Force. Yeah, let's go with that. I survived, and now I want you to kill me so that I live. I guess. Yes. That makes sense, right? Yes.